Logging lumberjacks of Swift, it's Prof G, and in this lesson we're going to finish our easy email authentication in Firebase using Swift UI by enabling logout from our app's primary screen, and we'll also allow the user to automatically skip the login screen if they previously logged in. Put on that coding flannel and let's get logging. Now, before we can navigate our way to a new screen, we need to create that new screen. So most of what we have on this screen is going to be the same as things that we've done before, but we will create a sign out button, adding some new Firebase Authentication sign out functionality. So to create the new view, I'm going to head to the Project Navigator, and one Xcode change that Apple had made was converting the old Group Project Navigator to a standard folder, and the folder doesn't allow us to reorder things by dragging them around and repositioning them. A group does. So I'm going to convert my Project Navigator to a group so that I can easily drag to reorder. You don't have to do this, but I think it's a nice thing to do. I'm going to right click on the folder that's the second item in the Project Navigator. For me, that's the folder named Snacktacular UI, and I'm going to select Convert to Group. In my default configuration of Xcode, folders are blue, groups are gray. Once this is a group, I can reorder things. We'll eventually create more groups for organization, but now I'm just going to organize things by dragging them around. I like the file ending in app to be the first item in the group since it's the first file that loads in my app. I'm going to put my preview content folder on the bottom. We're not going to touch this at all in our app, so we'll get that out of the way. And I'm going to put the login view right under the app file. This is the first view that launches from our app. Now, there are other group versus folder distinctions. Folders are smaller than groups, but it's not a huge savings. Group changes, like adding and deleting files, also impact the project file, and some folks think that this might lead to more changes like merge conflicts if you work on a large team. These different capabilities might change over time with different versions of Xcode. Groups versus folders is a little controversial. You might find some developers that swear by folders instead of groups, but now you know how to do both, and you can always convert back from a group to a folder if you needed to. And now let's create our first view that we're going to get to when navigating away from the login screen. Now, in most apps, this shows some kind of list of data. For us, this is going to show snack spots, or places where we can grab a bite to eat. So I'm going to right-click on Login View, and when we right-click to create a new file in the Project Navigator, it will add the file directly underneath where we right-click. So now I'm going to select New File from Template. This is going to be a Swift UI view. I'm going to name this List View, and we see it right underneath our login view. And we're ready to code. Now, important, we're going to be adding code to this view to log out of Firebase. So we need to import Firebase here, or the code won't recognize the commands and data structures from the Firebase library. Now we're going to want to start our navigation stack from this page. So I'm going to add a navigation stack, open and close curlies, and inside of that, I'm going to put in a list, open and close curlies. And we'll eventually update the list to show the list of all of the restaurants in our app, but for now, I'm just going to enter a text view saying, list items will go here. Then I'll set the .list style to .plain, and right underneath this, I'll add a .navigation title, passing in the string snack spots : And then let's add our navigation bar with .toolbar. We'll choose the option with just content, press return, and return again for the trailing closure to show up. And here we'll add a toolbar item view and select the option with placement and content. And to get the placement parameter to show up, I'll hold down option when I press return, although curiously that doesn't seem necessary. Now the placement parameter should be .topbar leading, so it shows up on the left. Tab to content, press return for trailing closure, and here I'm going to create a button, one with just the title string, and the action is fine. The title will be sign out. Tab to action, press return for trailing closure, and I'll put in a to-do that says sign out here. Then I'm going to copy this entire toolbar item view. I'm going to paste it below so that we can create a plus button in the upper right-hand corner. Then I'll replace this button with one with an action and label. I'm going to tab and press return to get both closures. And in the action item here, I'm also going to add a to-do that says add record code here, and tab to the label. And this is going to be an image with system name parameter passing in the string plus lowercase. And that'll add a plus button. And I also need to set this toolbar items placement to .topbar trailing to move it to the right. Now it looks good. And now we're going to want to dismiss this view and return to the login view if the user presses the sign out button. So we'll need a dismiss environment variable for this. Up top, we'll say @environment, and then in between parens, we'll say \dismiss. Then after this, private var, lowercase dismiss, and that variable is set up. Then down here in the sign out button action, I'm going to delete the to-do comment. And our sign out code can throw an error. So we'll first add a do catch clause, and in the do portion, we'll simply say try, capital A auth. And once again, I'm seeing this term is not showing up in code completion. So I've got to go back up here and import Firebase Auth, A-U-T-H. That was a change in Firebase. You used to not have to do that, but now you do. And now down below after try, I can say capital auth dot lowercase auth with parens after it. And then we just say dot sign out, open and close parens. That's all we need to sign out. We can see in code completion sign out throws, but we already dealt with that with do catch try. And if this works, I'll just print out a message from the console that says log out successful, and out front I'll put in a log emoji and an arrow pointing to the right. Then, very important, it's easy to forget, after we've confirmed that we've logged out, we want to dismiss to go back to the login screen. So we have to say dismiss, open and close parens, otherwise we'd be stuck on this view. Otherwise, if we throw an error in the catch clause, we'll print error, could not sign out. I'll preface this with angry emoji, and I don't think I've ever seen this error get thrown, but in a release app, you're always welcome to add an alert here. In case this shows up, you'd want to inform the user, but I'm going to assume it'll never throw this error in a release app. Feel free to change this later if you want. And that's it for our destination screen on the list view. So now let's head over to our login view so that we can navigate to this screen. Now I like to handle navigation away from the login screen using a full screen sheet. It's just like a regular sheet, but it takes up the full screen, and I think this is a fine look and it avoids using a navigation stack so you don't confuse it with the stack we have on our other view. Feel free to experiment with alternatives if you'd like, but from our previous work we know that working with a sheet involves a bool value that we toggle to indicate whether or not the sheet should show. So up top I'm going to create a new variable at state private var. I'm going to call this present sheet, and I'll initially set this equal to false. And why don't we add that sheet below our dot alert, and this is going to be a full screen cover sheet, so we'll say dot full screen cover. We've got a few options in here. Select the option with is presented in content. Is presented as a binding bool variable. We'll say $present sheet, that value we just created. Tab over, press return for trailing closure format. And if we present that sheet, inside that sheet, we want to present list view, open and close parens. That's the view we just created. So how do we toggle on that full screen cover sheet? Well, remember that happens when this is presented variable, this present sheet variable that we created, is toggled to true. So this starts out as false. When do we want to toggle it to true? When we sign up or register successfully, when we sign in successfully, and also I can show you how we can show the sheet, go to the next view, if the user's already signed in from an earlier session with the app. So let's head down here to our register and login functions, and I've already got to-dos in here. Let's change the first to-do, the top one here in the register function. The function name is scrolled out of the top, but all we need to do is replace this comment with present sheet equals true. And I'll do the same with the to-do comment in the else condition down here in the login function when the login is successful, and that takes care of our 2 button presses. Now I also want to add one more technique which will automatically move to the list view if the user had already logged in a previous app session. So Firestore actually stores login sessions, and you can use this to automatically detect a prior login. If you wanted to disable this for security reasons, you could, and instead require a login each time the app is opened. But you don't have to log into an app like Instagram each time you open the app. It detects if you've already logged in, so we're going to use the same behavior in our app. Now we're going to check to see if the user has logged in when this view first appears. So why don't we add an onAppear modifier? I'm going to do that just below the alert modifier up here. Really anywhere below the VStack should be fine. And in between the curlies, I'm going to say if, and this is familiar to you now, capital A auth dot lowercase auth, open and close curlies, dot current user. And remember, when we look at current user, we're looking to see if the user is currently logged in. So we'll check to see if we have a current user by saying exclamation point equals nil, open and close curlies. This condition is true if we have a current user, if the current user is not nil. And if that's true, we'll simply set present sheet equal to true, and that'll open up our full cover sheet showing us the list view. No need to enter an email or password. You've done that already. It'll just move you to the next view. And to be consistent with our 2 functions, I'm going to put a print statement above this. It says print login successful with log emoji out front. Now this automatic login works in both the preview and in the simulator. So why don't we head over here to the preview first and log in. So I'll log in, full screen cover sheet. We see that we're in the list view. I can click sign out, and we're back at the login screen. At some point, I'll clean out these text fields when we're done logging in, but let's try logging in again. I can just click the login button. We can sign out. Let's click on the play button and build and run in the simulator. And whoa, why did the simulator jump directly to the list view instead of going to the login view? Well, that's because the simulator remembered that we were already logged in from our last session. The login view appeared, On appear was triggered. We checked to see if we had a current user. We did. We set present sheet to true. That triggered the full screen cover, and we headed out to the list view. Nice. Click sign out. We go back to our login view. Let's sign in again. Now to test whether the login works, I'm going to quit the simulator completely. Then I'll rerun the simulator, and look at this. Now we've got to log in because the last thing we had done is log out of this app. I'm going to log in as a different user this time. Our full screen cover view shows this is our list view, looking good. We can sign out, and this looks great. So, Savvy Swifter, at this point you've used Firebase Authentication for some basic email and password login that you can drop in really quickly and modify in any kind of app where you want to get some authentication happening. There's a lot more we can do here, but in the next lesson we're going to move on to actually saving data in the cloud. Keep hacking!